Hey everybody, it is Nathan and Jess Selove with another episode of You Might Be Autistic If. And this is our very first actually produced video in the new house. Yeah. Anything to add?
No.
She's really great at improv, isn't she? So, Jess, talk to me about You Might Be Autistic If.
The reason why you might be autistic if videos is that there are a lot of characteristics and behaviors of autism. They exist in many expressions, and sometimes we have specific character traits that are interesting or funny or kind of sad, and we like to share them and talk about them.
And laugh at some of them, and also try to relate to some of them.
Usually appropriate to each one.
Yeah. What's important about this series? It's about creating a sense of community. These are all audience submitted You Might Be Autistic If statements. As always, if we mispronounce anybody's name, we apologize. Please leave a correction for the phonetic pronunciation, or as Jess would call it, pronunciation, in the comments down below. And also, as always, not all of these will necessarily apply to everyone on the autism spectrum. As we always love to say, you met one autistic?
You met one autistic.
Very well timed. So without further ado, you ready to get started?
Yeah, I want to go first. This one's from Autism Girl. Like it, exactly what's on the tin, as it were. You might be autistic if emojis are a foreign language to you.
See, I still use the emoticons instead of emojis, because the rules are so much simpler with that. Like if it's a end parenthesis, it's a smiley face. If it's a start parenthesis, it's a frowny face.
I never really worry about it.
I don't know. Those are pretty simple for me, so I can understand that. I
usually don't use them. Like if I want to tell someone I love them, then I'll just tell them that. I don't need to put like a heart with a kissy face with like heart eyes. Although sometimes if I'm trying to be hip and with it, I will. Autism Girl also says you might be autistic if you go on tangents about things that aren't interesting to others or even are interesting to others, but you talk about it so much it becomes boring.
Yeah. No,
it's not boring to me if I'm talking about it.
I definitely screwed up a date one time because
was it our date?
No, it was. This was back in high school. I learned that the girl that I was going on a date with was interested in politics, but apparently she wasn't as interested in it as I was, and I kind of screwed up.
Autism Girl also says you might be autistic if you tell every part of a movie when summarizing it.
I don't tell every part of a movie. It's just there's important context that people often need to know.
So that is the thing Nathan has issues with, I guess, in terms of summarizing relevant events. If he tries to tell you a story, he tries to give you all of this information that is not really relevant, but he thinks it is.
I like telling stories.
And it takes so long. I'll be like, did you get the mail? And then he'll be telling me this long story. And I'm very single-minded. Okay, but when does the mail come in?
Okay, that's an exaggeration. Autistics don't exaggerate. You're not supposed to do that.
You might be autistic if you think someone is mad at you when they are not. Yep.
Yeah.
You might be autistic if you read way too much into text.
Yeah. No,
I think this goes back to the emoji thing a little bit.
Yeah. Well, also, I think that knowing that you're not good at knowing what other people are thinking sometimes makes you overcorrect. Like, there were a lot of people that I was really good friends with back in high school that I would often think, do they actually like me or do they just feel sorry for me? Would I know if they actually liked me or not? Mm-hmm. I still wonder about her sometimes.
So, Autism Girl has a huge list, so I'm going to read through it kind of completely because I do think it builds up to a really good point. You might be autistic if you focus on the small details. You might be autistic if your texts are the length of an essay. You might be autistic if you set times for things. You might be autistic if you trip over nothing. You might be autistic if you chew on things that aren't food. You might be autistic if you zone out. You might be autistic if you have other diagnoses. You might be autistic if you can talk for hours about autism with other people with autism. You might be autistic if you don't like Autism Speaks. So much in there. I really appreciated also the building up to you might be autistic if you have other diagnoses.
Yeah.
That is a thing that I have recognized. Like, there are a lot of, sometimes, like, autism can be a set of behaviors.
Yeah.
So there are plenty of people who, especially if they were diagnosed maybe incorrectly,
Yeah.
might have a whole collection of diagnoses. Like,
Yeah.
it might be, oh, I have Tourette's. Oh, I'm also OCD. Oh, I'm also ADHD. And I'm thinking, okay, so you're autistic. That's not to say you
Yeah.
aren't those other things, but those are a collection of behaviors that altogether encompasses
much
like
associated.
your autism diagnosis. Like, those are
Yeah.
expressions of your autism.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really good point, because sometimes people think of that as I can't be this because I'm this.
Yeah. And also, way to dig Autism Speaks at the end there.
Yeah, autism speak sucks.
This is from Adiola.a. You might be autistic if instead of listening to someone lecturing, you observe the structure of the ceilings. Our building ceilings are like those in labs, so you can see pipes.
Yeah.
I knew the ceiling of every single room that I ever had classes in. It wasn't and it wasn't even always because I wasn't paying attention to what the instructor was saying. It was just that I was uncomfortable looking them in the eye, and I find ceilings kind of cool.
I find the ceilings that have any kind of beam or structural thing to be very distracting. I always have to follow the lines of ceilings with my eyes.
Yeah.
And I get stuck in that pattern and I can't turn it off.
Yeah. Yeah, I sometimes try to, you know, the tile ones that are like cardboard and have little holes in them. I like to look at those and kind of like see which one of them are the same, like have the same patterns. Another one from Adiola A. You might be autistic if people think you're mean because you never relay information with nice words.
Yeah.
Yeah. I sometimes think that my students think that I'm a mean teacher, or that I am like easily disappointed, because I'm usually very direct in when I'm saying, okay, so you didn't do this right, you need to do this, you need to do this.
So what this makes me think of something your father says a lot, which is that you don't have to mean to be mean to be mean.
Yeah.
Because that's quite common, and I have a lot of trouble sort of verbally pulling punches.
Yeah.
Because I don't know another way to express something.
Yeah.
And I got nothing for you. Sometimes, I mean, I guess sometimes if there's someone that you trust, that is either they know that person really well, or they are really socially aware and you do trust their judgment, you can ask them, you know, how do you think I should bring this up? Maybe what's a good script, or what should I avoid bringing up, or how do I manage to convey this while also conveying that I care, or I'm trying to be kind or respectful. Also, side note, and this is really hard for autistics to learn, people don't necessarily want to know that they're wrong when they're wrong.
Yeah.
And I know it's really hard, because especially if you like someone, why would you want them to be wrong? But a lot of people have problems with being wrong, and they don't want to know when they're wrong because they'd rather continue to be wrong. Is that it?
They
like being wrong.
It's more
what is it?
No, it's that people have this weird idea that their beliefs are an extension of their identity. So if you attack their beliefs, then you're basically attacking their identity. But the thing is, your identity can't be wrong because it's you, but your beliefs can be wrong because, like, you can have an opinion or a perception that is incorrect. So it's just a basic human error. And continuing, Ideola also says you might be autistic if after people say stuff, you blurt out an assumption from their statement that offends them and you don't know why they're mad.
Yeah, sometimes rephrasing what people have said makes them upset. And I think it's because they've managed to find a way that they really like to convey something in a way that probably wouldn't be perceived as mean. But at the root of it, it's still the same.
Well, I guess it depends on how you're doing it. I've actually found that if you're able to kind of restate what somebody says in an accurate way, and also in a way that makes it sound good, that they actually really appreciate that. That's actually one of the things I teach my students, about how to be dialogical.
Yeah, but in the times where people get mad,
it's usually when you did a bad job with it, and it's hard to tell.
That just is making me think of Mean Girls, where Regina George tells Katie Nobody cares at this point. That, you know, oh, she's really pretty and she says thank you, and Regina George is like, so you agree, you think you're really pretty. Which does not have to do with anything except for the fact that Mean Girls is a great movie still, and I will continue to watch it.
Though.
No.
I don't think.
No, not at all. It's just a great movie. Margaret Capers says, you may be autistic if you use the word neurotypical to degrade normal, typically developing people. So Nathan and I disagree about how to interpret this one.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that is someone who maybe fears that we are degrading neurotypical people. But if so, I guess what I would say is that Nathan and I have encountered people who are neurotypical who kind of seem to be upset if we are, you know, proud about like autistic traits, or find those really, you know, interesting or good, or even sometimes superior, like, ah, yes, telling me something explicitly instead of making me figure it out, you know, the reasonable way. And so what I would say, if that upsets you because you might be a neurotypical person, I would maybe ask you to interrogate how many times you actually encounter autism and autistic characteristics being portrayed positively. Because you can pull up a lot of shows or movies where a character might be autistic or might not be, but is clearly exhibiting autistic traits. Yeah. And that's the butt of the joke. The joke is not that, isn't that sometimes funny? The joke is, ha, they think they're people. Yeah. It's kind of the difference between punching up and punching down. Yeah. So, I mean, Nathan and I don't genuinely believe that autistics are superior to other, like, neurodivergent people or neurotypical people. Yeah. It's because we're not eugenicists. Yeah. But there are definitely things that we celebrate about being autistic and being disabled people, and I don't feel the need to apologize for that.
Yeah. And for me, I mean, I took that as humorous, because for me, that's what most of the comments that I make about neurotypicals, they are intended to be humorous, because again, in no way I want people to think that I actually do think that, like, there's something, you know, inherently superior about autistics. I mean, I have made points about how there are things that objectively there are those of us on the autism spectrum can do something better than a person who might be a neurotypical, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're inherently superior as a human being, because everybody has different skills. So for me, when I make fun of neurotypicals, it's about sharing in the laughter, because I really do think that laughter is how you create community. That's why I am usually less inclined to get offended when someone's making autism jokes. And I actually specifically tell my neurotypical friends, no, it's okay for you to tease me. Like, as long as I'm laughing with you, which I usually am, it's okay for you to tease me a little bit.
That's a real nettle, like, thorn-filled situation. I would say proceed with caution with, like, inviting your friends to tease you, because there are people who maybe don't have, like, the kind of self-awareness and, like, self-confidence that you've developed over years, where they might have friends who say, oh, I'm just joking, I'm just teasing, isn't this fun? And they feel that they have to perform that. So I would just say, I don't really think that it's possible to degrade neurotypical people by celebrating autistic people.
Yeah. Well, that is all the ones that we have time for. As always, thank you so much to those of you that submitted You Might Be Autistic If statements. If you have a You Might Be Autistic If statement that you would like to submit, please leave it in the comments below and we will get to it at some point. And in the meantime, that's today's video. Thank you all for watching. If you liked this episode, please give it a like, a share, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, check out some of my other stuff, and you will see me in the next one.